Hey, you going guys and girls, welcome to the channel. So in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting the door jambs, firewall, cowl panel, boot jamb and parcel shelf prepped up and painted. So I'll run you guys through a bit of the process. These primed areas here I've applied the 3M dry guide coat, so the powder, and because I'm basically just block sanding the surface, so getting rid of any orange peel and stuff out of the primer, I'm just using 500 grit on my little block and then going over it with the sponge pad as well. So where I can get the sanding block in and around, I'll definitely do that, but I'm going to resort back to using the sponge pad because at the end of the day, the panel is already straightened. There's no really need to block out repairs or anything because they were really good to start off with. And another thing about the sponge pad is it's also going to eliminate any chances of block marks in like in the reverse curve sort of areas. So that's going to really be a big help, and that'll definitely show off later on down the track when obviously there's no imperfections in the panel and whatnot. Now getting into the firewall around these sort of bead lines, whatever you want to call them, you want to make sure that you are sanding diagonally, because if you sand up and down, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with track marks in your primer. So always sort of sand to the line and then away from the line, and then basically after that I would go over it with my sponge pad again just to round off any of those the bead lines, whatever you want to call them. And that's basically just a means of softening up the panel is what I would call it, not having anything that's too harsh on it, and yeah, basically just rounding off if there is any slight imperfections. So you definitely want to get in and around areas like this, so always make sure you've done a good job at prepping up inside there, because if you're going to have any paint failure, that's where it's going to start. Now with the cowl panel and the firewall prepped up, I'm now going to start working my way back into the pillars and in and around the door hinges. I find a steel roller with a bit of grey Scotch-Brite tape to it, you can get in and around those hinges really well, and yeah, it really saves your fingers. Alright, so I'm moving on with the prep. These areas here, obviously I painted these. This line down here has been soft edge when I painted this part, but there's still a little bit of a step in it. I was obviously, because I'm putting material on, so it's going to build up somewhat. Now, if I was to rub this with 500, which is what I'll end up essentially rubbing this with after my 320, it wouldn't cut down that edge. And another reason why I want to cut that down nicely is I want to get back to that primer, the wet on wet primer that's underneath the gold, because I want to make sure that there's no gold over the top of the epoxy, because the base coat, which is the gold, will not adhere to the epoxy without the wet on wet primer. All right, so I skipped through a few steps. Obviously I got the rest of the prep work done and I've masked it up. Everything's been finished off with 500 grit and the grey Scotch-Brite. And now what I'm doing here is I'm just tightening up the plastic with the heat gun, just so when the overspray lands on it, there's no ripples or anything, because I find if you don't have really tight plastic, some of that dust can get trapped within the folds of the plastic or the rippling, and it ends up in your job. And yeah, that's another thing that sort of, it can help you get a cleaner job if you just spend a little bit of time tightening up your plastic. This is something that I've found. Anyway, carrying on with the job. So I'm prep siling everything down. One rag is wet with the prep sile and the other one is just dry and clean. So wipe on, wipe off method, I find that to be the best instead of the spray bottle. I mean, the spray bottle is helpful, but I just find for a final clean, I find rag on, rag off is far superior. So you'll see in this part of the video that I've seam sealed some of the joints. Now previously I'd already seam sealed some of them, so that's why if you see that I haven't seam sealed them, they've already been done. And here's Gary with the weather.
Alright, so fairly productive morning this morning. Obviously got the car, rest of it all masked up. Cleaned, seam sealed, cleaned down again. Obviously I've tightened up all my plastic with the heat gun. I have put my filter in my exhaust. You can't really see it, but I have wet the floor down just a little bit. I had some shit blow off the door and it's sort of lingering, but yeah, I don't think I'll be able to get it all out of the shed at the moment, so hopefully that'll hold it down enough. This stuff pretty well, like not blasting high air pressures or anything like that, so shouldn't be a drama. But yeah, like I said, got wet on wet in the gun. Think about 500 mil, I think, so hopefully that should be enough for this. Yeah, not much else I can say. It's all ready to go, so I'll finish suiting up and yeah, we'll go.
Getting on with the wet on wet primer, I'm using the Carmaster GP 2-pack primer filler, and I've reduced that around 30% for this. And I'm putting it through my knockoff GTI Pro Lite, which, you know, for an $80 gun, I think it's doing a pretty damn good job. And it's definitely serving its purpose as a cheap throw around gun for this kind of stuff. Now for the first coat of base coat, so I'm using the DV1 base coat gun. DV1B Plus is the air cap on this one, and the paint that I'm spraying is the Protect Paraglaze system, and the colour that I'm spraying is Holden's colour Sunburst, which is code 2D007. So that's the first coat on. As you can see, it doesn't cover too bad over the grey wet on wet primer, and I'll show you guys a little bit further on in the video, right about here. So the cowl panel has 2 coats of base coat on, and the pillar has 1 coat. So you can see the colour differences there. So 2 coats, basically looking almost at full coverage. I'd probably say about 85%, and 3.5 coats, you're looking at about full coverage. The base coat is on. It's looking not too bad. Obviously, I wasn't going to keep on filming pre-application of the base coat because it was basically just the same thing. Yeah, is what it is. A few little dramas. I had a sweat drip in this door jamb, which I fixed up. Not a big deal, it happens. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this fella right here, which is around 600 grit dry sanding sponge. Norton, don't buy Norton, buy 3M. And basically what I'm going to use this for is I'm just going to knock the tops off a few little nibs, and then I'm going to put on my sort of effect coat. Right, I'm going to stop myself right here. Effect coat is basically just spraying the metallic further away from the panel so the metallic lands further apart, giving a greater effect to the colour itself, and basically just making it look more metallic than what it actually is. To really get this metallic to stand up. And yeah. And it's ready for clear. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just knocking off the slight surface irregularities that there might be, something that might have just landed in there before I put on that last coat, which is what you see right here. And as you can see, that metallic is standing up absolutely beautifully. Doesn't look blotchy, doesn't look patchy or anything. It's all nice and consistent. It's looking awesome. So I was really happy with how the base coat came out on this. Came out super clean as well, which is no easy feat in my dingy little shed. And I mean, even that parcel shelf, like that, technically I shouldn't have painted over the original paint, but I figured where it is, it's, you know, no big deal. There's a few scratches and stuff and bits of crap and stuff underneath the paint, but even that came up pretty nice. Like for what it was, obviously it's not as nice as the door jambs or the firewall or the cowl panel, but like it is what it is. For something that I was just given a little bit of a tidy up, this art looks nicer when the cars apart. You know, probably only spent maybe half an hour worth of prep just on that parcel shelf, and here I am rattling on about a damn parcel shelf that you don't even see. But hey, that's what you get with me. But anyway, let's just admire that beautiful looking base coat and that beautifully prepped up firewall, because hey, I was really happy with that. So same gun as before as what I put the base coat on with, and the clear coat I'm using is the Carmaster HS 2-pack clear coat. Normal hardener, which is way too cold of a hardener for the weather that I was spraying in, because it was about maybe 45-50 degrees when I was actually painting this, and that hardener is really only good for around 30 degrees. And I did reduce it out a little bit, I think it was around 10%. Now, because of how hot it was in here, the clear would have been a thinner viscosity already, but hey, I wanted to throw a little bit of thinners in there just to sort of make it go on a little bit flatter. If that makes sense. I find if I was painting a bonnet or something, I wouldn't thin it out at all in this weather, because I would basically just hammer it on. But because, you know, I'm going in and around corners and whatnot, I just sort of thin it out. That way I can sort of just puff it on in a few areas. And yeah, it sort of wets itself out. I just find it's, yeah, just my style of painting at the end of the day. The only real drawback of adding the thinners into the clear coat like this is you might end up with a bit more dye back or a little bit more pinch up, because obviously there is more solvents in the clear coat that are going to shrink over time. But again, for door jambs and engine bays, it's absolutely no dramas on something like this, I find. Now actually the order that I sprayed this in is a little bit backwards, because I started at the parcel shelf boot jamb area, moved on to the driver's side door jamb, painted the engine bay side, and then finished off on the passenger side door jamb, which is what you'll see here. Technically, I probably should have painted the parcel shelf boot jamb, whatever, and then the 2 door jambs, and then the firewall, and then the cowl panel, or the cowl panel and then the firewall. But I just found walking my way around, I wasn't really going to get any overspray in the boot jamb area, painting the door jamb right next to it, because at the end of the day I'm getting air blowing in from around the boot jamb anyway, so it's going to draw that overspray back towards the cowl panel, which I suppose you could argue that I'm going to get a little bit of dry spray landing on top of those panels, but I think the speed that I got it all done in, there wasn't really any effect of that, so I wasn't really too worried about it. But yeah, like just looking at this recording, I think it looks pretty shit hot in the video, so I'm not really too worried about it if there's a little bit of misty areas here and there. Right, so this is dried for about 4.5 hours, and I'm just getting ready to unmask it now. Just sort of looking over my work. Pretty happy with it all. It's come out fairly clean. I think a lot of that was probably due to how quickly everything was drying. Obviously there's going to be nibs and stuff in it, like just bits and pieces here and there, but overall it's not too bad. Not really too worried about the tops of the cowls because they'll end up getting repainted when the shell gets painted, like the exterior. Really happy with how the firewalls come up. That's looking really nice. Really happy with that. A little bit of less peel would have been nice, but like just a little bit peely in here. I mean, not a lot, but like just, I'm nitpicking my own work. I'm sure most people would probably be happy with that. But yeah, I'm really happy about it. Haven't found any runs, or any real runs anyway. I will show you a run that I have got. I'm pretty happy with it because it seems to be all nice and wet. Like, not wet to the feel, but like no dry spray around the door hinges, which is always a bit of an issue when painting like this, or you get a run off this one or something like that. Yeah, I feel like I pretty well carried a consistent wet edge on this whole job, which I'm pretty happy about because yeah, it was probably about 50 degrees in here when I was spraying this, so to do something like that's pretty difficult. There's that little run just there, so we won't worry about that. That'll get hidden under the rubber anyway, so yeah, it's I'm really happy with it. I think once it's all back together, this engine bay will look pretty nice. Door jambs look pretty nice. And yeah. Alright, so I'm pretty much done on this one for now. The clear has pinched back a slight amount, so it's not quite as glossy as it was yesterday. But hey, that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it's door jambs and a firewall. Most of the firewall will get covered by, you know, heater box, brake booster, wiper motor, engine eventually. And yeah, door jambs much the same, less all the running gear stuff. But yeah, basically what I'm going to do next on this car is I'm going to have to bodywork the inside of the doors and then run through the same paint press process as I did on this stuff on the inside of them. Get the doors back on, and then yeah, it's time for the front panels. So yeah, lots of fun. That will eventually happen. Probably not going to touch this one much more for this year. Obviously it's coming up to Christmas and New Year's, and yeah, I've got some other shit that I want to do. So yeah. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, if you want to know something, just shoot me a comment or whatever. Take it easy. Cheers.
Let me ask you something. You jacking off yet?